Number 5. Nazi medical experiments. During World War II, the Nazis conducted some seriously messed up medical experiments. I'm talking about stuff that would make your stomach churn. One of the most infamous Nazi doctors was Josef Mengele, aka the Angel of Death, but more like the Angel of Doom if you ask me. He conducted horrific experiments on twins at Auschwitz, injecting them with diseases, performing surgeries without anesthesia, and even sewing them together in attempts to create conjoined twins. But Mengele wasn't the only one. The Nazis also experimented with things like freezing prisoners to study hypothermia, because apparently blankets were too expensive, testing the limits of human endurance by depriving people of oxygen, and even trying to change people's eye color by injecting chemicals into them. It was a carnival of cruelty, all in the name of twisted science. These experiments were not only horrifically unethical, but also scientifically dubious. They yielded little useful information, and the suffering they caused was immeasurable. Number 4. Project 4.1. A fine example of let's see what happens if we mess with stuff we probably shouldn't. Back in the 1950s, the US government decided it would be a brilliant idea to test nuclear bombs in the Marshall Islands, because who doesn't love a tropical paradise sprinkled with a bit of radiation, right? After the infamous Castle Bravo test in 1954, which was a delightful nuclear explosion far bigger than anyone anticipated, they realized they had a teensy-weensy problem: nuclear fallout. A lot of it over a lot of innocent people. But instead of immediately helping the affected islanders, the powers that be thought, hey, let's study them. We can learn so much. So they launched Project 4.1, masquerading as a medical study, but in reality, it was more like a twisted science fair project. They rounded up the Marshallese people who were covered in radioactive dust and started observing the effects of radiation exposure on them. Did they ask for consent? Nope. Did they care about the well-being of these folks? Not really. The islanders were treated like lab rats, monitored for thyroid diseases, cancer, and other nasty side effects of radiation. The results were predictable. High rates of cancer, birth defects, and other health issues plagued the islanders for generations. But hey, the US got some valuable data, right? Totally worth ruining countless lives and a pristine environment. In the end, Project 4.1 remains a dark chapter in scientific history, a reminder of what happens when curiosity completely overrides ethics. Number 3. Kamera, aka Laboratory 1, Laboratory 12, or the Cell in Russian, was a place where the Soviet secret police played mad scientist. Established in 1921, this lab's mission was to craft poisons so sneaky they could take down a person without leaving a trace. From 1939 to 1953, this lovely operation was overseen by NKVD director Lavrenti Beria and his sidekick, Vsevolod Merkulov. These guys didn't just stir the pot, they threw in prisoners from the gulags as taste testers. Imagine getting a meal that's not only from prison rations, but also seasoned with mustard gas, ricin, or cyanide. The lab's star scientist Myronovsky and his team were quite the creative bunch, experimenting with poisons like digitoxin and curare, hoping to find that perfect, undetectable killer. And where was this house of horrors? Nobody really knows. Its location was a better-kept secret than your grandma's cookie recipe. Even KGB agents weren't in on the secret, proving that sometimes the left hand really shouldn't know what the right hand is doing. Fast forward to 1954, and the Soviet government claims they shut down the lab. Sure, and I have a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. Even today, suspiciously convenient deaths by poison hint that the Kamera might still be cooking up trouble. Enemies of the Kremlin have a knack for dropping dead under mysterious circumstances, which is about as subtle as a sledgehammer. Number 2. Japan's Unit 731. Unit 731 was like the evil science lab of the Axis powers. Led by the charmingly sadistic Dr. Shiro Ishii through the 1930s and 1940s, this unit was all about pushing the boundaries of human cruelty in the name of military advancement. They weren't just dabbling in questionable ethics. They were diving headfirst into a pool of atrocities. What were they up to? You may ask. Well, they dissected people without anesthesia and tested the best remedy for frostbite by forcing prisoners to march in extremely cold temperatures, because what's more fun than freezing limbs until they fall off? In fact, these evil medical experiments saw prisoners drenched with poisonous gases and locked in pressure chambers. Worst of all, the Japanese targeted citizens with biological warfare strategies. Wells were infected with plague-ridden fleas, cholera, and typhoid. Unit 731 didn't just stop at humans, they also conducted experiments on animals to develop new biological weapons. Because when you're already knee-deep in ethical violations, why not throw some animal cruelty into the mix? To add insult to injury, the US government gave many of the researchers immunity in exchange for their data. So yeah, war crimes were totally cool, as long as you had some juicy info to share. Number 1. The Tuskegee Study. The Tuskegee Study was a 40-year-long experiment conducted by the U.S. Public Health Service to study the natural progression of untreated syphilis in rural African-American men in Alabama. The study, which began in 1932 and lasted until 1972, involved 600 men, 399 of whom had latent syphilis, and 201 who did not have the disease. In other words, the control group. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The participants were never informed that they had syphilis, nor were they ever treated for the disease, even after penicillin became widely available as a cure in the 1940s. That's right, these poor men were left to suffer from a potentially deadly disease, all in the name of science. It gets even crazier. Not only were these men not treated, but the researchers also actively prevented them from seeking treatment elsewhere. They even went so far as to deceive them, telling them they were receiving free health care, when, in reality, they were being used as human guinea pigs. The study finally came to an end in 1972, after an outcry from the public and ethical concerns raised by scientists. It led to significant changes in how research is conducted, with the establishment of stricter guidelines to protect the rights and welfare of research participants. I can't thank you enough for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you will probably love this one also. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, so that you don't miss my future videos.